Welcome to CSI8 Certification, day number 11. We're going to begin training on GM reporting tools in CSI. Today's training will be on the FBO daily email that goes out every morning to every FBO, and we're going to look into the airport module. So before I explain what we're looking at on this screen, let me make it very clear that the first 10 lessons, this is lesson number 11, the first 10 lessons go through the operational processes that need to be implemented so that the data on this screen is accurate. The data on this screen does several things that, regardless of the number, is going to tell you whether your team is participating in the processes, and it's going to tell you the success of how well those processes are implemented. Truly, you got to get to a place where analytically you get the understanding that if it can't be measured, then it wasn't done. Now, I totally understand how that's contrary to customer service. How do you measure love? How do you measure kindness? But I propose that your numbers, the result of that attitude, the result of participating in the business and the ability to measure that participation is going to pretty much mirror the spirit that you're looking for to run your operations. Okay, so let me explain what we're looking at on this screen. I went to my inbox after sending myself the HPN Daily FBO report for May 20th, 2019. Yes, this video is being recorded in 2022. What I'm trying to do is find some data that's so old that nobody will be upset that I'm sharing this data to the entire network. And so this data is 3 years old, and the operations at HPN have changed significantly since this time. So hopefully sharing this information is not going to cause hardship for anybody. But the point is, we've got to teach it. I had to grab data from some location, and so if anybody has objections, just let me know, and we can rebuild this video showing a different FBO's data. I chose White Plains' data because they have a pretty wide market of variation of sales. But the idea is White Plains doesn't sell much on the military side, but we still have the military classification in this report. But so you get the point that these reports are going to change slightly based upon the foundation, the base sales. If it's a heavy military location, it's going to look one way on the report. If it's a heavy GA without military, it's another way. If they're doing commercial and military and GA, it looks even more different. So what I've done is, this email is pretty long. So I've taken screenshots of it from my email and then cut the report in half. You have the top half of the report on the left side of the screen and the bottom half of the report on the right side of the screen. So let's look at the top half of the report first. So over to the left, you'll see that the way I divided this report is we have all of our ILAS data, all of our flight data with all of our market capture, because people have highlighted received service in ILAS in the operations side. That's on the left. And then our fuel manager, all of our fuel sales are in the bottom half of the report. And so I separated it conveniently where you have flight data on the left and fuel data on the right. Okay, so looking at the left side, looking at our flight data, let's first look at the second line. The second line on this report says CSI8 certified. I want you to look at this list. We have Ernest, Lauren, Nicole, Janet, Will, and Dominique. All of these folks have personally passed my CSI8 certification, and they did it during the days before these videos were made. When they did it, they had to answer and read requirements via email. I would send paragraphs and paragraphs. All these videos were sent in text format. They had to read it, do homework, reply to that homework. This is the largest group of CSI8 certified people at any FBO in CSI's history. So with that many people CSI8 certified, you would expect big things from this FBO's operations. And it's with incredible joy that I tell you that this FBO operation is currently on their 23rd consecutive fuel sales volume record. That's just amazing. All right, so back to the report. So the intent is you'll see a line item in the report, and everything indented to the right of that line item is a subset of that item. So you can see on the left, we have our month-to-date flight data. The total number of flights is 2,369. They've serviced 470. So that's 19.8% of all flights came to the Millionaire HPN ramp. So of the 2,369, 1,558 are jets, and they serviced 115 of those. So in this month, as of May the 20th of 19, they had only serviced 7.4% of the total jet market flying into the airport. Now, below the jet flights, we see that 6 of those were blocked, 415 are net jets, and at that FBO, at that airport, NetJets has their own hangar. Other fractionals are 136. They've serviced 7 of those. Pepsi and IBM have their own hangar. There's 50 of those arrivals. International flights are 98. Well, all the international flights go to one of our competitors' FBOs, and we don't have the opportunity to service those flights. And then other aircraft that are based at other FBOs that we know of are 212 arrivals. So when you take all of that from the 1,558 total, the remaining jet market is 641 aircraft. Only 41% of the jet market is an available market to Millionaire White Plains. Of that 641, in this month to date, they had serviced 107, a total of 15.5% of the jet market. Of the 107 serviced, 30 were base tenants, 5 were a particular aircraft from Tradewinds, which is one of our base tenants we monitor separately, and then there were 606 transients, of which we only served 102 of the 606 transients. So you see how that works? So we add 606 plus 30 plus 5 on those items that are indented past remaining market, you get to 641 total. So turboprop landings were 471. They serviced 319 of those, almost 68% of the turboprop market. They serviced 237 out of 340 prop. So that's almost 70% of the prop market. So now that you see how that's read, then on the day's flight data, instead of me reading through each number and the indentions, you can just pause the video and see that it works the same way on today's flight data. You have the same categories, you just have the data for the current day, and it works identical, and that's how you read the flight data for your report, for your FBO daily report each morning. And so now looking to the right side of the screen, now that you understand that each indention is a subset of the line above it, so you'll see that your month-to-date gallons sold is 130,447. So the projected, yes, 20 days into the month, so the month projection is 202,192. They have no commercial sales. Their GA sales are 130,447. And their average GA sales through April is 177,000. So this current month, they're on pace to go beyond their average for the year. And so below there, you're seeing your Jet A sales, 125,752, 307 jets were fueled. Your gallons per aircraft fueled, GPAF is 409. And so I won't read it all and bore you through the video, but you can pause the video and do all your research on this screen. And so all of those indentions below Jet A is how White Plains requested that their sales data, their sales volume data each morning be reported in those categories. And those same categories are reported further down for today's fuel sales. This report is rolled out to the White Plains business every morning at 2 o'clock in the morning. We have very similar type reports, maybe a different classification of trade for the different things that they're looking for, but this is the FBO daily report going to everybody at that FBO that the general manager requests. Okay, so this is lesson 11. This is the first lesson that we're doing general manager training on. There's no problem with every employee that you desire to watch this video. There's nothing proprietary. There's nothing's going to hinder the authority and the responsibilities of the GM for the employees to watch it. But that still is a decision of the GM. That being said, we've already talked about things on the previous slide that were not ever identified in the operations training about how we get these numbers. For example, if you go back in the video, we talked about NetJets arrivals. How does CSI know the number of NetJets arrivals? How does it know the number of the other fractionals, and where does that come from? How does CSI know Jet A sales versus Avgas sales? You just see the number and you're like, okay, so they know it. It's not that simple. What you don't know is there's several programs, at least 2 for every location, that are running on the back end, totally separate programs that are reading your fuel subtypes for your invoices. And by knowing those fuel subtypes, we categorize those sales into various categories or various fuel transactions in CSI. Various lines of business, I think is what we call it. So we know by the fuel subtype whether it's commercial, whether it's GA, whether it's military, and all the above. So things that will totally hinder the accuracy of these analytical reporting is employee turnover. With employee turnover, the fuel subtypes get entered incorrectly sometimes. You got to do all this training all over again. The seat time to get a CSR who does not know anything about aviation to becoming efficiently operating the front desk with the standards of data entry that we require takes a period of time. Understanding fuel subtypes. When you sit in meetings and people that don't know how this is done, and they just say, hey, just go add a fuel subtype for this and that, you have to know as a general manager that it has to be communicated because CSI doesn't know that you added a new fuel subtype in TFBO and what class or line of business it belongs to. So you have to know these things. You can't make changes without telling the automation these changes were made. So your commitment to CSI training, your commitment to POS training, your understanding of these processes becomes very key to the accuracy of analytical reporting. Welcome to the CSI Airports module. You can open this module by clicking the runway icon over to the left that has airports below it. And you can see that when it opens, it defaults to the default site location on the toolbar. So our default site is White Plains. It defaults opening to White Plains. You see some general information about the White Plains location. And so let's continue. So what I've done is I've clicked the CSI tab. And the first view, you can see the first tab selected below CSI is the based aircraft tab. We have White Plains as our airport selected in the list of millionaire airports. And yes, if you click any other location, you'll see this same data for that location. If you look in that list over to the right, you'll see a column that says tenant. So as we spoke about in our training for base tenants, you're seeing that the first column next to tenant is based. So it's based at White Plains, and it's also in our base tenant program. So the tenant says yes. The next column to the right is showing the airport that this aircraft is flying into the most in the last 30 days. It doesn't mean for you to go change it. It doesn't mean for you to change the base airport. It just means that they've flown into that airport quite a few times. They may have left their base airport, gone to that airport, went somewhere else, and back to that airport, and then finally back to White Plains. It does not mean the aircraft is not based at White Plains. Let me say that again. So the idea, though, is we want to make sure and do our best to maintain our based aircraft list for our airport, because this helps us to identify where our available market really is. Now what I've done is I've gone to the second tab. I'm on market capture. When I selected market capture, you can see the tabs below it automatically selected. And then what I've also done is on the second list, the bottom list of data showing the arrivals by month, I selected the tab Jet including Block Jet. When you go to this tab, it's going to default to the first tab, which is Prop. But I went to the Jet including Block Jet, and here is why. The money is in the jet services. The jets buy way more fuel. You can break even on turboprop. You're not going to survive your financials on prop business alone, obviously. And so CSI, now because we have 750,000 tail numbers and we know the manufacturer and the model knows what engine type it is. So because we have all this data, we can now sum the arrivals by day, the arrivals by month, and now you're seeing the count of arrivals by month. It's showing 4 years for White Plains. And yes, you could click any airport on the left and you'd see the data for that airport show up here on the right. You're also seeing it graphed. Currently, it's got 2022 selected, so it's showing the last 12 months over to the right. But you only see those graphs if your monitor has enough resolution. So this screen, you could look at this a long time, and our management team does. When you look at these numbers, if the jet traffic is up and your volume is up, they measure the difference. The jet traffic is up 3%, your fuel volume is up 25%. Big difference. In White Plains, it's a little bit different because in White Plains, there's a huge NetJets ramp over there. And so you truly, it'd be kind of cool if we could actually separate the NetJets landing counts from these total counts to remove the influence of NetJets on these numbers. But that being said, these are the numbers. They're available. And it helps you to do your management reports and understand the growth or the decline in your business based on your airport traffic. Okay, so that concludes day number 11 of CSI8 certification, our first day with GM training. So let's continue on to day number 12.